Why do humans have different skin colors? Put every human alive into one enormous photograph. More than 8 billion faces, every shade of brown, black, bronze, beige, and pink. Now remove the countries, flags, languages, and labels. One question remains. Why does one species come in so many different colors? The answer is not race. It is not that humans began as separate groups. The real answer is sunlight. Your skin is an ancient record of where your ancestors lived, how much ultraviolet radiation reached them, and what their bodies needed to survive. Once you understand that, skin color stops looking like separate categories. It starts looking like a map of human migration. To read that map, travel roughly 300,000 years into the past. There are no cities, farms, borders, or written languages. Early Homo sapiens are living in Africa under intense sunlight, surrounded by predators and no guarantee of another meal. These humans were not identical, but most were probably darkly pigmented. And that was not an accident. Long before modern humans appeared, our ancestors lost much of the thick body hair that once covered their skin. Less hair helped the body release heat while walking and running under the African sun. But losing that protection created a problem. Ultraviolet radiation could reach the skin more easily. Too much UV radiation can damage cells and break down folate, a nutrient important for healthy development and reproduction. So the human body relied on a powerful defense, melanin. Melanin gives much of the color to our skin, hair, and eyes. The more protective melanin the skin produces, the darker it normally appears. But melanin is not just color. It absorbs and scatters ultraviolet radiation, acting like a natural shield. Near the equator, where sunlight is intense throughout most of the year, that shield offered a major advantage. Over thousands of generations, people with pigmentation suited to strong UV radiation were more likely to remain healthy and pass those traits to their children. Dark skin became common not because evolution preferred how it looked, but because it worked. Evolution does not care about beauty standards. It asks one question. Did this trait help someone survive and reproduce? Under the African sun, high levels of melanin passed that test. Then some humans began leaving Africa. Small groups slowly moved through the Middle East, across Asia, into Europe, toward Australia, and eventually into the Americas. They had no maps and no plan to populate the planet. They followed animals, water, coastlines, food, and safer conditions. But as their descendants moved farther from the equator, something invisible changed. The sunlight became weaker. That sounds like good news. Less ultraviolet radiation should mean less damage. But sunlight creates a biological trade-off. Too much can be harmful. Too little can also become dangerous. When ultraviolet light reaches the skin, it helps the body produce vitamin D, which supports healthy bones, muscles, immunity, and development. Near the equator, sunlight is abundant. Darkly pigmented skin can block large amounts of UV radiation while still allowing enough vitamin D production. Farther north, the situation changes. Sunlight reaches Earth at a lower angle. Winters grow longer. People cover more of their bodies against the cold. Useful UV radiation becomes limited for months. Now, the same shield that worked brilliantly in Africa could make vitamin D production more difficult. Over many generations, genetic variants that allowed the skin to absorb limited ultraviolet radiation more efficiently became increasingly useful. In several populations, skin gradually became lighter. But this did not happen the moment humans entered Europe. Ancient DNA has revealed something surprising. Some European hunter-gatherers who lived thousands of years ago probably had darker skin than most Europeans today. Some may also have had light-colored eyes. That combination seems unusual only because we compare them with modern people. Evolution does not create matching sets. Skin color, eye color, hair, and facial features can be influenced by different genes and different pressures. The pale skin now associated with much of Europe became widespread later. New populations arrived. Farming changed diets. People eating less vitamin D-rich food faced stronger pressure to produce it through sunlight. Populations mixed, and genetic variants connected to lighter pigmentation increased. Europe's modern appearance was built slowly. But Europe was not the only place where skin became lighter. Populations in East Asia faced a similar challenge, weaker and more seasonal ultraviolet radiation. Their pigmentation also changed, but many of the important genetic changes were different from those found in Europeans. Imagine two people climbing the same mountain from opposite sides. They reach a similar destination, but they take different routes. Evolution solved a similar environmental problem more than once, and that destroys the idea that humanity can be divided into three simple biological boxes: black, white, and Asian. Human skin color is a spectrum. Populations near the equator often maintained darker pigmentation because UV radiation remained intense. Populations farther away often developed lighter pigmentation because sunlight was weaker. But latitude was never the only factor. Altitude matters. Cloud cover matters. Clothing, diet, migration, and population mixing all matter. A coastal population eating vitamin D-rich fish could respond differently from an inland population living at the same latitude. That is why skin color does not change in straight lines across a map. It changes gradually, shaped by thousands of local histories. Melanesian and indigenous Australian populations, for example, often maintained dark pigmentation far from Africa because they continued living under intense ultraviolet radiation. Populations across North Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, East Asia, Europe, and the Americas followed their own complicated paths. Human history was never a set of isolated branches. It was a network. Groups separated, migrated, met again, exchanged genes, and moved on. This is why modern racial categories are poor maps of biology. They can matter socially, culturally, and historically, but they do not divide humanity into precise genetic units. Two people placed in the same racial group can have very different ancestry. Two people placed in different groups can share large parts of their genetic history. Our brains notice skin, hair, and faces immediately, so visible differences can feel enormous. Genetically, however, humans are remarkably similar. Travel backward through anyone's family tree and modern labels begin disappearing. First, nationalities vanish, then languages, then civilizations. Eventually, every living person's ancestry leads back toward connected populations that lived in Africa. The person with the lightest skin and the person with the darkest skin do not come from separate human beginnings. They are distant relatives carrying different outcomes from the same journey. Their ancestors encountered different sunlight, diets, climates, and migration routes. After thousands of generations, those differences became visible. So, what color were the first modern humans? They were most likely darkly pigmented, shaped by the African sun. But that is only the beginning. Every shade that appeared later belongs to the same story, one species leaving its original home, entering different environments, and adapting to survive. Darker skin is not an outdated version of lighter skin. Lighter skin is not an improved version of darker skin. Each is an environmental solution. Your skin is not a wall separating you from the rest of humanity. It is a page from our shared history, and no matter what shade you see in the mirror, turn back enough pages and every human story begins beneath the same African sun.